Who wants to talk about anti-crime? Okay, so I was watching this video. I clicked on it. I explore New York City's crime-proof subway innovation. Okay, so I watched through a lot of this video, half of it, because, there's not that much content to the videos usually like this. And it's more like an argument for why the same old corruption can fester. So I'm here to apply reality to the situation. Here's how you prevent crime. Um, excuse me. So, what kind of crimes happen on a subway? Let's list them and how we can prevent them. We have they talked about people accidentally on purpose pushing people on the tracks as a train's gonna come, which is murder. So they have, safety girder, safety rails now in place. So you can't do that. That's duh. Okay, now the next one. Like if you're gonna get your possessions stolen, like pickpocket style, um, having like cameras or like physical security, like people, dogs, humans, and cameras with a bunch of humans staring through them are not going to be able to detect pickpockets. That's kind of the point, right? They're kind of sneaky and they'll keep working the system and figuring out ways to do their bullshit. So let's take, for example, you got this guy standing right here. So let's suppose there's somebody, not the sexy woman, but there's someone else sitting there, and he's gonna reach out here and wait until there's some bump in the train that happens. That's happens each time you go along a section, and then he's gonna try to grab something out of this guy's bag without him noticing. Making up a scenario here that sounds likely, right? So, um, if there were lockers, is what I was going to say, like that are in each rail car that are just big enough for, your laptop bag. And then, like, your phone, you keep it on you or whatever, or so many different ways. It doesn't matter. But the point is, it pops right open for you, and you can get your stuff back out as you're leaving the train, and you'll get like a warning message that you're leaving your stuff behind in the locker, intelligently, so you can't do that. Um so then, like, if somebody somehow did leave their bag behind in the locker, then it would be auto flagged as the person's property and returned to them with a fee or whatever, or they could pick it up for free at the whatever station terminal zone, like with a big bag check-in thing for lost and found. Now, you could even reward people with like free rider privileges for however long for turning in property that's left. Um, and then in this way, it's like these cubby lockers can prevent people's things from going missing on accident. And then eventually somebody, takes them because they're like, well, whatever. So that's another big problem. And so like now you've got these designs like how other cities have it. Finally, in New York, they're going to be putting in more and more of these trains where it's open between cars like this. And so it prevents people from climbing up on top and surfing. Yeah, so whatever. That's kind of cool because idiots will do it and hit into stuff and kill themselves pretty quickly. Especially if you get new uh, crane tram systems, whatever, that go a little faster than. Anyways, the point here is these dividers between the train sections. I would say that for safety, right? If you have someone who's gone crazy on, like they had bath salts, that crazy thing, then in New York and other places, people just went wacko and violent in a weird state that shouldn't have been possible, right? So that was spooky. And so if that's happening, then people would want to get to one end of the train and then you have like, like those simple safety doors that close from either direction on a old elevator, the metal uh hinges that are the whole door sliding in triangle shapes, whatever. That's like whatever. So then like as soon as you get to your stop, that would disengage. um Now, in this video, they talk about this guy's such a brat. What do you expect? It's New York. Anyways, all these cameras. So, the problem with that is they're never going to make them public. And if they say they are, they'll go back on it and try to get away with it. So, what you need, like I've said before, it's now possible as of 2026 at a cheap enough price. You can have simple like scanner devices that are just general radar like they can do for cars. So instead of it being a camera, there is no camera lens and pickup. It's just like harmless sonar that doesn't bother dogs or bats, and it just registers shapes in general in the area so that you know how many people are on the train and generally what car they're in. And like um it's always less invasive because then you can't have anybody feel like they have a grudge against a group or an individual and start spying on them as a police department or anyone else, because let's face it, everybody's going to carry their phone around. And we know anybody and everybody can access where you are from that. So having the cameras not physically looking at you though, um it's like this statement of privacy, like officially, right? No one's supposed to be looking through your phone's camera when it's in your back pocket. But we see this trend where women always have their phones in their back pocket when they're walking around with the camera top sticking out. And I always feel this same thing. Like there's this giant on the flip side of being spied on inappropriately, there's like this concept of these people have no lives. So they get women with different qualities of asses and whatever. So then when they're walking away and the camera lens is pointed out, then it can see all of the guys or whoever that are looking after the woman. And like right where that camera lens is. So then like there's like a secret ledger of like who has the best ass based on how many people stare at it. You know what I'm saying? I guess, on the flip side, there would just be the most noticeable ass. So then people go, whoa, and look, but maybe for a different length of time with a different expression. You know, that's what's interesting about mass data surveillance. That's the good stuff. That's like the Nintendo stuff. You know, make life fun. Now, um, if you have a 360 bubble cam at like where people at the turnstile check in or whatever, like it seems like everybody's going to vote and argue to have a camera there that mass does whatever. So I always say, if you're going to do that, it has to be real public, like it's the public connection, like through the library service or whatever, even as I would do it, so that it's just always on, you know. There's already cameras all over in tourist locations, um, where tourists are coming through all year round. You can watch it, them go by. Um, in like Wyoming, there's one. Whatever. The point is, like, now back to the different types of crimes that happen. That one about how people can fall onto the tracks and get hit by the train. Well, imagine, Spider Man is at the front of the train, and he has to slow it down. So he's shooting all the spider webs in that scene. And Spider Man 2 versus Octopus, I guess. I don't know. Doc Ock. So then he's ripping the, bricks off of buildings as he's not shooting enough webs at first. Now, I'm just pointing that out as a concept. Now, if you had a big net that was like stretchy, bouncy, fully, that was like down, um, swooped on the tracks with like a additional spring mechanism that's like a big, trampoline frame on either side. So like, I guess I'll just go to paint. So if you got the train and so you just have like okay, so like there's pillars, right? Along where you get on the train, and if there aren't in certain spots, you can, have them made just to control what I'm talking about here. So like the platform is gonna be, over here. So okay, so the netting is gonna be um this whole area. Let me sum it up here. Like that. Um, so then I'll go over here. We'll flip this. So the concept is, um, these would be on like springs so that when it clips onto the shoulder of this like zone here that would receive the pressure, then it would like whip the net area from either side if you have platforms on either side um up from where it's down like by the tracks and then swooping up, towards the ceiling from either side. So like I guess if I can show that off, I can put in the other side real quick. What? So we need to flip it horizontal and vertical. There we go. Now you would have like bouncy shoulder plate things that deflect bodies, like if somehow a human along, where it's curved here towards the front, you need like a fender that's bouncy that pushes people back away if the train's coming in and fast or slow or whatever. And then that, helps with this system of popping these up. Oops. Okay. So this area, you might ask, well, if you're going to be boarding the train, how do you get, if this net's lifting up? So, how it would work is you have your security barrier, anyways, that is in place that would, I mean, technically, you'd think it would come down from the ceiling, from above, each time, so that there's no access to the tracks. But if this is like a mesh material, then like old elevator doors, but springy now, new material, like um like if somebody somehow the barrier doesn't work and they can slip past it or something and they're laying on the net or fall onto it, then when the train comes in, it the door things that are blocking people from getting to that area lift up, and at the same time these right afterwards, in like probably a physical mechanism, they then like pop up and lift anything that would be on there and fling it, back onto the platform at just the right amount of force so it wouldn't really hurt anyone. They just lift them up to their feet and or roll them onto the platform a little bit as the train comes in. Um, that's extreme, future, current possible measures you can take. Okay, I'm gonna save this. We'll save it as sub subway spider man safety netting. Put it in my folder. Okay. So that's that issue taken care of. Now that all the train cars are open, doesn't it make sense that like there's just like a, you know, family friendly train on one end or whatever, so then like um you can have different concepts where here's the one I like the most. A dog friendly city, it could be any city. Like even New York, you could have these zones with this turf grass or real grass, and it's designated for dogs to go and poop there and urinate. And you can have these, you know, interesting urinals that are like gutter things, specific, you know, gutters for dogs for peeing, I guess. They like that kind of thing. Um I'm not saying we even want animal piss laying around. I'm saying it would be an actual like urinal thing. Now, how would you prevent humans from using it? Um well, like I've said, you have um urinal locations that are usable all over the place. I've already described my public toilets and how they function and clean in other videos. So, if you got like, you know, Roomba robots that, you know, you can do Wally type things, you can do all kinds of stuff now with robotics. And, you know, the doggy bags of poop can be robotically handled. And you can have alleyways where dogs have their collars on and they're, you know, can go along safely um, between areas. Um, Now, what I think is pretty nutso about having a huge city and getting all the way to the 21st century is that there's like, it's so basic. Like, nothing's really ever upgraded. Like, you should have elevated walkways, like all the alleys. You should have like walkways up that cross over the streets at the alley points so that people and dogs can continuously flow as foot traffic to their different destinations. Um, Now, this all gets to the point that I was leading to, where if you have a dog that's sitting in the safety cabin, um, and it's just like, you know, a reasonably, you know, well trained and well sized dog, then if someone's getting harassed, then they can just use the neutrality of the dog to, you know, hide in the cabin or whatever. And then if the dog follows the person doesn't like it, then the dog can stop that person. Now, um, this video mentions policemen and how having cameras isn't really going to stop anything anyways, and having a policeman in each subway train is only going to stop certain types of crimes generally. So um there's this whole concept where like how do you not spend infinite money and have any corruption happen when it comes to police departments in big cities? Like, how do you make sure they aren't involved in drugs, instead of just stopping them? Well, dogs, of course, can smell drugs, on people. If they're carrying a secret hidden drugs, dog's gonna know. Um, and if they're doing such a good job that the dog doesn't notice, then I guess you got a drug mule problem, but that's another story. Now, um, the dog, its collar can have simple input commands from like pre-recorded for places that it needs to get to return home and go to other locations. And so like the collar can guide them. Like I've described different types of dog collars and I'm going to make a whole video on them eventually. But I've just been waiting because I kind of want to patent some of the stuff, specifically for this dog collar stuff. But I'll just say that the owner can either call the dog and they're part of their like cell phone service and give instructions, or just automated system with the owner's voice or whatever standard voice that gives basic word instructions that dogs understand. And general concept of hot potato, cold potato, jiggle features or vibration or whatever sensation or sound left or right on the dog's shoulders to let it know if it's going in the right direction to get to where it needs to go. You know what I mean? This can be employed for anybody, not just dogs. It's really intuitive if you get it right. I'll talk about that later more because this is about trains. So let's take a look here. Let's see what else is discussed. Okay, so we click along here. Not a good idea because smelly people, weirdos, other unpleasantries. Now, now that's been said, I modify what I'm saying, and you can have a car at either end that's, you know, like smell friendly, like hypoallergenic. Um, the hypoallergenic train car, that makes sense. And then on the other end, you know, I guess optionally you can block the smell with like those panels that can slide out that are plasticky and lock in place all cheap. So then you're blocking the smells of the rest of the cars. Um, so if you go into the hypoallergenic car and like you don't belong there, then like people can say, hey, like you're making me sneeze. What are you doing in this car, train car? And then the other person can make up excuses. Um, and then everybody can say, I don't care about your excuses. Maybe they're real. Maybe, your girlfriend sprayed perfume and it got on your jacket. But like it's messing us up in here. Like it's got certain chemicals or reactive substances, agents that are, triggering people's immune systems or whatever is going on. Because I have this problem where there's this whole different sections of society like still divided out based on how they live and what their diets are and all this stuff. So if you're in the version of reality where everybody's real, destitute and dumpy and wandering around the cities with no money and can't drive very good and are always getting in trouble from the police who are always coming down on everybody. Well, um, everything can be pretty smelly, and then in reverse, it's smelly because other people are using perfumes that are so toxically illegal in a lot of refined countries that you can't win. You're either getting chemical stench or you're getting like smelly somebody stench that's horrible. So um hmm now specifically, here's what I would recommend. Let's flip it around. Like I always do this in my brain and look at it from the other side of everything. Having cars where people that are stinky aren't allowed in them. Well, what if people that have branded themselves stinky or have been mass voted by people as stinky have to go to specific train cars? Let's think this through here. Where their stinkiness doesn't all build up amongst each other so they all have to be stinky together. Instead, there's like booths, like, upright phone booths. And like, it's like the concept that each of these areas would be cycling air to outside the train in a like level of speed that keeps everybody, healthy. Um Now venting it, where do you vent it to? These stinky people smells. Do you vent it like into the general subway tunnel? Um or do you like have some sort of system probably where like it comes out of the trains at a certain speed and like you can angle the venting so it like hits and could be sucked up into the ceiling or side near the ceiling of the subway tunnel, um and either processed or you probably don't even want to spit that out of the city directly, but like what I'm saying is then like these smells like can generally be classified how they do as they're filtered. And if some smell comes through from the general ventilation of all the train cars, not just these one areas, this needs to be employed. Like the speed of the train car is cycling, air in and out in a certain way. Um, Now, in the winter, you would hope that down there in the subway system they have all the tunnels hot along with the station and entrances and exits. Like if you can't keep the bowels of New York hot, then you're in serious trouble. There's a lot of leaks. Um so yeah, if like a whole ton of amount of smell comes through and like it's like whatever extreme smell like they can be flagged like formaldehyde, um gasoline, whatever. If there's an excessive amount of something coming in through the ventilation system, they could be worrying like, you know then that can be flagged is all I'm saying. um let's see what else is going on here. We fixed that. The seats are just terrible. Like, um, I guess they're made for mass sitting of a bunch of butts for a long time over and over again. Um, it seems like we need like a built-in, like I was saying, for cleaning my toilets with magnetic spinners in the walls for public toilets. Well, what if we employed for like these seats? What if they were made out of a new polygel with like magnetizable micro metals. I love this using this system. And then you have like a wand on the underside of the seat that like each time you get to the next station or whatever and somebody's been sitting here, then it would like wipe the bacteria away with like a magnetic line, um, and get to the back here and either have one that comes down and they meet here or one that, actually just curves on a track and finishes going up the top. Um, then it just basically uses like magnetic static electricity to sanitize. Um, I think that's the answer there. Okay. Now, people can still get pushed on down there because these things don't stop that. But um, yeah. What are those supposed to do?
Safety barriers. They're going to be put into 4 different subway stations: Clark Street, which we're at, 191st Street in Washington Heights, and then also at West 8th New York Aquarium, in the fourth spot.
I'm so confused. So, how does that prevent anything? Okay. So you can grab them when somebody's trying to push you? Well, if you don't know what's going to happen, it doesn't help. $7 billion to put in full on platform doors. 7 billion, not million, billion. Oh, wow, that's absurd. Yeah, right.
172 stations, and even then, the transit agency's estimated cost $7 billion. In 42nd Street, and that would certainly be a great protective measure for New Yorkers. But a 2020 study by the MTA found that platform doors could be installed at just 128 of the subway system's 472 stations, and even then, the transit agency's estimated cost.
Yeah, okay then. I mean, here's the other thing that I was going to get to track intrusion detection systems. Um, well, can't you just have a basic, like I said, sonar motion detector mixed with, laser scanner thing that you could put in for like how cheap, at each platform area. You don't need to put a few in like laser levelers, but they just check for people and animals on the tracks. And then you just, once you have it installed, it can be made really rugged to just not really need to be upgraded for decades. It can sit there for decades or 100 years. Um, I'm guessing their intrusion detection systems cost billions of dollars instead of just, you know, a couple hundred or $1,000, for each train station area. The cost of putting it in and the actual cost of the products could be a couple thousand, I guess, and then become cheaper as tech makes it easier to have them set up. So then you could have the same thing. Let's think it through. Say you have some area near your like school. In that movie script, we worked on Mean Girls reboot next gen. We want to call Mean Girls Next Generation or whatever, but it just somehow got titled Mean Girls. Anyways, in that movie, um, people fall in front of the bus and it's all dangerous around one side of the school. Because that was happening here at one of the schools in the Idaho area. And we wanted to bring awareness to that issue. So the solution is um, like the same detection system that could go in here. Like, say you have a stone wall that goes around one side of like even a fancy like hotel area. And so cars will kind of drive around and be blind as they come around the corner. And what if somebody wanted to foolishly walk and you don't want people to walk through there? You have a different walkway, but like accidents can happen. But if you have some simple like laser leveler systems, but instead they're just scanning for motion that's human or animal sized instead of motorcycle or car sized or whatever, then how would you do it on a curve? Well, you would have reflector mirrors on the curve so that not only can people see um, on those mirrors if somebody's standing in the spot where they're going to come around the corner. You should always have, safety mirrors on spots that are dangerous. But how do you keep those mirrors clean? So that the safety lasers and people's eyeballs can see things reflected at angles. Well, you have the mirrors set up so that you have like hockey puck sized Roombas. And then you have a magnetic like wand system that just goes in a circle on the inside of the mirror that's like thick. And then these hockey pucks, unlike a, set system, have like soaked, cleaner on them as they're like, got that cleaner sponge surface or whatever. And then the wand moves around and the magnetic hockey pucks follow it and it cleans the whole surface. And then the little Roomba magnetic things, cleaners, go back into some sort of socket on one side and then get like cleaned with a little like filter system that would be however many feet tall, like a little vacuum port area. And then, maintenance people can come in once a week or whatever and put in new once a week. No, well, I mean, I was thinking something be more often. This would be like once a year. Put in more cleaner fluid or whatever and replace the hockey pucks. Um, so there's another invention. Um,
stations or installing blue lights at 3 subway stations, which the MTA says has a calming effect and can even reduce suicides. This is an
I guess it was the right kind of blue light. Generally, blue colored light can do all kinds of things to people. I've been around blue light that's depressing and blue light that's cheerful, so I don't know. I guess if it's cheerful light, that's a good idea.
extremely old subway system, and making the kind of modern changes that you see all over the world, well, it's just going to cost
Okay, here's the other thing. Um, subways like have a certain amount of cars so that they can be loaded onto a platform. It's a certain distance, I guess. Now, there's this thing that happens where they always talk about it in the police shows. Somebody's, getting a little older, 40 or 50, and they don't want to retire from doing things out in the world to protect and serve. So, um, wouldn't you take those people and have them semi-retired in a way that then they can hang out on various trains at certain times and like assist the dogs, and then like be on a, if you don't have enough of them or something, then they can be on a rotating schedule, so there's enough of them around within a certain amount of minutes. That's all I have to say about that, I guess. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And then on the other extreme end, you can have Rookie Blue, you know, teenager people that, can do it because it's like direct, less, um, less things to compute. Like, it's just protecting people from other people in various ways of like that are pre-assigned, that are logical. Um, and yeah, okay, let's see here.
cost the agency $285 million back in 2022. And we showed you how they were experimenting at JFK subway.
Okay, yeah, so they have these gates and stuff, Um, so I guess if you're really athletic, you can always find a way over the gates or whatever. But like if you're a tourist, for example, and you've flown in and landed at an airport or whatever, and however you get your credentials, then you should have like a bulk cost thing that's already taken account for so that you don't have to feel like you're shilling out money all over the place. Cause like that's a horrible feeling, like to get tourist trapped. Like if a local person's on a system where they can get whatever discount based on whoever they are and how much they ride the subway, then a tourist person should get like a temporary patched in solution for based on tourism and everything.
Boulevard with the new sliding gates, but many of you were not impressed as we saw a lot of piggybacking going on. But there's another area that fare evasion is rampant, and that involves emergency exit gates, like this one right here. In fact, it is the most common way that people were evading fares according to the MTA's fare evasion report. Now, one thing the city has been trying to do about that is hiring unarmed security to just stand in front of the emergency exits so people won't feel so brazen to do so. But
Hmm.
they're going to be experimenting with another tactic.
The MTA taking new steps to crack down on what they are calling the superhighway of fare evasion.
There's a pilot program being installed at 138th Street at the 6, the Flushing Ave JMZ lines, and the 59th Street and Lexington Avenue subway stations. And what they've done, it's pretty clever, is you push the emergency exit handle and it would take 15 seconds to open, which would frustrate people and they wouldn't use the emergency exit gate and they would just, leave normally and they wouldn't leave the emergency exit gates wide open for people to just come through. MTA officials said they chose those 3 stations because they have enough turnstiles.
So to be clear, people weren't getting through the turnstiles. So then they were just walking through the emergency exit in big groups of people. And then other people would wait and then go back, come through the other way. Well, like maybe you should have my system where you don't have to have people turnstiling in and out because it's just mass recognized, on your phone. Like with a app you install or whatever. And then you have it turned on and then you're a commuter or whatever and it's registered and flagged with general, numbers as you step past whatever area you're leaving with your device. So you have no turnstiles that slow down people when they're leaving their platform area. That's always going to cause problems, and that's always going to cause terrible pickpocketing. Well, there. Now I've solved that issue. Yeah, and hiring, low-level security, whether it's police or not, however much, whatever that means, you'd think you'd want them on trains or platforms and not hanging out by the emergency exits. That doesn't make sense. Well, there's my upgrade system off of this video for whatever people want to use it around the world. There we go.